every day we're making decisions, small and big, you know, from who to spend time with and how to spend your Saturday to like who to date and where to live and, you know, when to walk away from an opportunity and when to start a new one. And I think that we often get really caught in our head and question and feel unsure. And I think human design really reveals a very different way of making decisions that is more intuitive and allows us to make kind of clear, confident decisions that we know are right. And I guess I really believe that when we are making decisions in a way that's aligned, everything else is easier.
Welcome to Deeply Well, a soft place to land on your journey, a podcast for those that are curious, creative, and ready to expand in higher consciousness and self-care. This is where we heal. This is where we transcend. Welcome back to the show. I'm Devi Brown. So excited to have you all here, especially everyone that is listening, either through some headphones, through your car. If you were watching us on YouTube, we are building in that frontier. So excited to be here. So much to talk about today. I am so thrilled today to be joined by a special guest, someone who has been on the podcast before, but this is our first time in person, so it feels even extra special. And someone whose work I just deeply, deeply admire and have used and referred to over the last several years. So much wisdom, so much expertise. I cannot wait for you to hear all of the things about one of my absolute favorite tools that has been so life-changing for me. And it's really shaped a lot of my personal and professional life and my ability to be in surrender with the truth of who I am and how I am uniquely made. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to today's episode, Erin Claire Jones. She is a globally recognized leader in human design, known for making this powerful system practical, accessible, and immediately applicable to everyday life. Over the past decade, she has helped hundreds of thousands of people worldwide reconnect with their true selves and find their unique flow at work, in love, and in life. Erin is the founder of Human Design Blueprint, where she has generated over 1 million charts and sold more than 43,000 personalized blueprints in over 160 countries. She has conducted 4,000 plus private couple and family sessions, trained over 1,000 certified students, many of whom now lead thriving practices. Her debut book, How Do You Choose? A Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work, in Love, and in Life, will be published on May 13th.
Wow.
Erin, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Wow. I mean, this is expertise. This is mastery.
It's really crazy to just listen to somebody read about you.
I know, isn't it?
It is.
What comes up? What were you feeling?
I was just like, I feel like it's so easy to just get in the weeds of all the things.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially around the book launch. So it's just funny, like hearing all that and be like, wow, I've done a lot. It's been a wild, It's been a wild journey with human design. Yeah. So I was just appreciating that.
And you know what I love too, and we talk about this a bit. Well, let's be honest. I'm always talking about this, I feel like, but we're going to dive into this deeper a little bit later in the show. But something I really appreciate when I'm able to have masters of their craft on this show, that's my MO. So it's kind of everyone that's on this show. But what I love is, you know, as someone that has also kind of worked on the back end and from the press perspective many years ago, getting pitched people and all the things, for like 10 years, we have been in this fluffy, marshmallowy space of like self-aggrandizement in bios or in marketing materials, right?
Totally.
And like an insane surge in fluff words. Like back when you used to write a paper in school and you try to say as many descriptive words as possible to like fill the space.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how a lot of people's work history has been becoming and looking in some of the more kind of performative social media times.
Yeah.
And so something I really appreciate is, you know, when I read a bio like yours and it's in the fibers of not saying, hundreds of thousands of views on a video.
Yeah.
It's hundreds of thousands of people who have been in front of you, sharing energy, being changed over time, over a curriculum, over a teaching, over, a portal of information. And it's like, I'm just going to be the person that always centers that in conversations, because I think it's so important. And it's not to make anyone who does not have these accomplishments feel in any way minimized. It's to say, you have a beautiful journey ahead of you of allowing your own myth to unfold and your own expertise to unfold. And you don't have to rush to occupy space as something that maybe you haven't yet had the full time to earn.
Yeah.
So I want to hold that, because I think that's really powerful, especially when you do a work like this that is like, human design is a meaty work. There is just so much nuance and complexity and, deep connection to the human experience. All right, I'll hold there. Let me reel it back in. What is human design?
Well, thanks for reflecting all that. I think it's a good reminder, and it just also takes a long time to really become great at something.
Yeah.
And I think that and we talked about this before we started recording, but anyways, I think it's quite a journey. And human design, I have been working with for a decade now. It's crazy. It is a system based on your time, date, and place of birth that reveals how you are wired to operate in every part of your life, from relationships to career to parenting and beyond. It really gives us each our own personalized roadmap to finding our flow. I think in a world where we see others having some kind of success, we can feel like we'll just emulate what they've been doing and it will work for us. And human design is such a powerful reminder that we are wired differently. And what may work for them might not work for us. How they make decisions may be really distinct and different than how we do. So human design is often a real permission slip to show up to life in a way that feels more authentic to us and ultimately will generate more goodness in our lives.
Yeah, that is such an important, powerful point, because it really, I do find that like some of the power of it when it's entered my life or resurged in my life, it really takes you out of any possible comparison and really anchors you into like the specialness and the specificity of like what you are.
Yeah.
And how you can best be used or be in use of what you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is different? So, I know kind of the way you configure this is very similar to astrology, right? What are the differences? And I guess what is the expansion or the build upon of human design on astrology?
So human design draws from a lot of systems, astrology being one of them, also the I Ching, the chakra system, Kabbalah. And it's interesting because they all like play a role in the system, but the way they kind of come out in human design is totally different. It's not like there's like a super linear connection to astrology. Besides, it plays a real role in it. It's based on the same information. I think that like the simple answer is like there are different systems that I think are really supportive of each other. My experience with human design, and honestly, I'm sure that astrology does this too, but I don't know it well enough to say that it does. What drew me to human design is that it felt like it was equal parts mystical and practical. It was mystical in that it's based on your birth information. It's a channeled system. This is like wild that we could know this much about ourselves based on the time, date, and place of where we were born. And the information it offers is so specific and so practical and really, designed to integrate into our everyday lives in a way that will make a big difference. And I feel like I so often have experienced assessment systems where I learn really interesting things about myself, but then have no idea what to do with them. And human design just like gives you the things to do. It's like, this is how you're meant to make decisions. And this is how you maybe might structure your days in a way that's more optimal for you. This is how you can communicate your needs to those you love. This is how you can better support and ask questions of your child, and the book is very oriented around how can we actually practically apply this system to every part of our lives in a way that we can experience real change.
Wow. That made me think, I think we first connected when my son was really young, like just like a couple years old. Yeah. Because I remember I had my human design done with you and you did one for my son.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love I have found in parenting, it's so helpful. And things, he's young, so it's slowly revealing itself, but it's made it really fun to understand who he is through that lens,
Oh my God,
in
yeah.
addition to, of course, my knowing and being his mama and all the other ways, but to just kind of support that. And I remember when human design gets so specific, like down to like your eating style.
Yeah.
And I remember I found this thing that was really funny, whereas an ex of mine used to always have to eat with like the TV on really loud. And that like drives me out of my mind because I am a silent girly. Like we don't play the TV in my house. Like I play a selection mix, but I don't have noise. I love silence. And I was like, this just, oh God, this can't work. And then I saw in his human design that it literally said, your best eating style is around a lot of noise. You should consider having a radio or a TV running because it helps your digestion. And I was like, what? I'm like, he's supposed to be this way.
Isn't that wild? I had a client whose son had that digestion and he was 3. And like every time he would start a meal, he would be like, Mom, can you turn the radio on? Like it was just like it was so crazy because it was not her discovering her human design that led to that. He was already asking for it and human design just allowed her to like support him in that instead of restrictive.
Yeah. So your new book is called How Do You Choose? And I think that in and of itself that's like one of the most important questions, one of the most powerful questions of being alive. Like everything is choice. And like, such a powerful question. What inspired you to center your debut book around this particular theme right now? And what do you hope everyone takes away from it as they turn the last page?
I think that, as you know, I think human design can serve so many purposes. And I think one of the most central ones is around decision making. And I think every day we're making decisions, small and big, from who to spend time with and how to spend your Saturday to like who to date and where to live and, when to walk away from an opportunity and when to start a new one. And I think that we often get really caught in our head and question and feel unsure. And I think human design really reveals a very different way of making decisions that is more intuitive and allows us to make kind of clear, confident decisions that we know are right. And I guess I really believe that when we are making decisions in a way that's aligned, everything else is easier. Because I feel like we spend so much time questioning and wondering and like staying in things too long and just knowing that like this isn't right and this is where I go next. Like it's allowed me to be so much more surrendered to life's flow. And so I think that the book will do many things for people. Decision making is one piece, but the goal is to help people make really empowered, aligned decisions in the realm of work and relationships and parenting and all those things. And I think also centering it around decision making, part of the thinking was around, hopefully helping transcend the kind of world human design has been in, because human design has grown in popularity and is still nascent. And I feel like we are all facing the challenge of decisions every day. And so I would love this book to be a tool both to those who already love human design, but to those that are totally new but are curious for another tool that will help them decide in a way that feels truer to them. I think my hope for the book is, when they turn the last page, that they feel centered in themselves and really permission to show up in a way that feels very true for them across all areas of life and equipped with a lot of new tools to do so. But my bigger hope is that they then return to all the chapters that are not about them, and they read the chapters about their sons and their daughters and their partners and their friends and their colleagues and their parents, because I think human design is such an amazing tool to find our own flow in life. And I would say it's even a more powerful tool to better understand the people we care about most. And like I will just say experientially, reading the chapters that I wrote about like my generator husband, every time I read it, I'm like, oh my God, I could do this better. Like, I see why this has been hard. Or reading the chapter about like my manifestor 7-month-old, I'm like, oh, I see why this has been happening. Like, or my manifesting generator toddler, like I'm just like, every time I'm given new tools. And I wrote the book and like, yeah, we still need all these reminders. Yeah.
That's so beautiful, because I think that is one of the special things about it. It's like you can come into this deep understanding of yourself and walk, a more deeply carved path of self-mastery. But then it also does really create some significant harmony
Totally.
with you and the people in your life. And even in building compassion, for those you may not care for and like, or have friction and challenge with, being able to understand sometimes fundamentally, we're having a shared experience, but fundamentally we can be very different and not have to want that to change in self or another.
Yeah. And I think that I tell a lot of these stories in the book of people that came experiencing some kind of conflict. And I always have that question of like, is there a fundamental disconnect, or do they not just understand each other?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is often the latter. There's one story about a couple that is considering whether to move to the East Coast. One of them knew immediately, and she was just like, my husband is waffling. He won't decide. He's so indecisive. And his way of making decisions in human design was about giving himself a full month. And so what she perceived as waffling was him finding his way to clarity in the way that he knows how to, and then like I tell another story of a manifesting generator and projector couple, and the projector felt really down on the relationship and questioning whether it was right because she felt like she didn't have the same stamina as her partner and like couldn't show up in the same way and felt like she should, and then realizing how different her design was and how she had really different needs really changed everything and brought so much compassion. So like, it is just crazy because we could make each other wrong for being different, but we're just different.
Yeah.
And then and then I think it brings us so much closer together.
And the difference is only a problem if you're trying to force change in another person.
Exactly.
That's going against how they are meant to be.
Right. That's not gonna benefit them. And I also I feel like it was so fun kind of polling my community and asking for examples, because some people are meant to kind of talk things out. That's how they find their truth. And one client shared that every day after work, she didn't need this, but she would walk around her neighborhood with her husband and do like a loop where he could kind of verbally process his day, because she was like, that's what he needs. I don't have that need, but like we've built that routine into our lives. So he has that space. So like, it's just so cool to watch what happens when that compassion is built and that understanding is there.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Something that was like pretty deep for me was when I first heard of human design, I didn't naturally kind of connect to this was a very surface level understanding I had at the time, right? So it was kind of like, you're a generator and this, and this. And I didn't really connect with that. But when I got into the fibers and I'm like, oh, I'm a 6'2". Oh, I'm an exemplary human type. Oh, my life is broken up. I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. And it gave me really, I guess acceptance would be the word, just such acceptance. You used the word a moment ago of permission, but to own like that. Can you talk, I know you've seen my chart. Can you talk a little bit about what those things mean?
Which pieces? Just all the pieces?
Whatever you think.
Okay. I love it. Yes. Okay. So, human design is so endless, as you know, in the information it can offer us. So, one example, why don't we talk about your profile just to give people a little taste? If you guys don't know your human design chart, you can look it up at humandesignblueprint.com. It's totally free and you'll kind of get this wild looking chart. So there are so many pieces to share about. You are a generator with a wait to respond strategy. Your authority is sacral. You're a 6'2" profile. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. Let's talk about your authority. Okay. So this is around your decision making. So if anybody looks up their chart and sees that their authority is sacral, this is for you too. It means that you are meant to make decisions in the moment based on your gut feeling. It's a visceral feeling in your belly that will either pull you toward or push you away from something. It comes without a reason. It's like, this feels right or it doesn't. I don't know why. I trust that I'll find out why later. If you find yourself speaking about why you should do something, you probably disconnected from your gut. If it's like, I think that I should do this because it might lead here or this might happen. So it's really about kind of following what feels instinctually right in the moment. Like some people like me, we need space and time for things to settle. For you, when it's a yes, there's no need to wait. The waiting is only if it's anything but that. And I would say a really powerful way for those close to you to help you access it is to give you options. So, having your collaborators, partners, friends ask you, like, do you want to do this or this? Go here or here. It's a way for you to kind of bypass the endless possibility of the mind and drop you straight into your gut feeling. Curious how and if you resonate with that as
so deeply.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Jess, I have such a strong gut response. Like my sacral is like instant, like instantaneous. And I literally do feel it like a gut pull, you know, I feel it physically in my body. And I make decisions so quickly. And if it's actually having to think about decisions, I'm more likely to make the wrong decision.
Totally.
If I take time to think about it.
Isn't that crazy? That is actually, I hear that so frequently with people that have sacral, because they'll have a visceral response and then they'll kind of immediately get into their head and start questioning it, and they lose that direct connection and then end up moving in a new direction. And then they're like, wait, but my first instinct was actually so opposite of that.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, for example, just so you guys hear the polarity, like I am meant to sleep on things, and often the first instinct for me is not the one that feels true a couple days later.
Wow.
So it is just like such a good reminder that like we all choose differently.
Yeah.
And also we are surrounded by people who choose differently. Like some people might perceive you as too rash or too fast when like that's how you operate, or they might perceive me as too slow and like overthinking things when like I need that space and time to really decide.
You know what and I'm hoping that this is connecting with everyone listening. So what I love about like, especially this kind of a method, having a tool like this, is you find something like that out and you can instantly put it into practice.
Exactly.
And I think that's what is, to me, is so powerful about this system, because it's giving you a real understanding to be in practice with. So if you were told, hey, you're a sacral as well, now you have a little more permission, and you can say maybe, hey, for the next few days, I'm going to just notice instantaneously how I feel.
Yeah.
Whether or not I choose that, whatever.
Totally.
But keep following the train of information that reveals itself based on the decision.
Yes. And I think that is such an important point, because human design is an amazing experiment. Like my encouragement is like, try it, see what happens, you know, see if it feels like a trustworthy compass for you.
Yeah.
You know, my experience is that like when people experiment, they're like, oh my God, this is so useful. But like it is worth experimenting with and see if it actually feels true in your own life. Something I so often say about human design is it doesn't actually really matter to me whether it's true. It matters whether it's useful, you know? And so just like taking these pieces to experiment with.
Yeah.
Another piece that I think is really interesting for you, and is true for actually all generators and manifesting generators, is that your strategy, which is the piece that speaks to how you best create opportunities, is about responding. It means that you are somebody who's very naturally magnetic. You aren't really meant to chase after much. You're meant to kind of really use your energy in ways that feel satisfying, and then see what shows up in your world and what your body naturally responds to. Once you get that gut response, you can like go pursue and make that thing happen so powerfully, but it's waiting for that response, which is hard, because it might be like, say you're an entrepreneur and like there's space and you're like, I've got to come up with my new offering. It's actually not about like being at home and like writing it down and like seeing what comes. It's about like seeing what shows up in your world and what sparks. Is there something a client mentions that really resonates? Is it like seeing another coach that has something that you feel inspired to create? Is it like listening to a podcast that sparks a new idea? Like you are here to like see what sparks that gut response. And what I love so much about this strategy is that it can often take you in very unexpected directions. You might meet someone or encounter something that sparks a gut response that you did not expect, and yet it's there. And so for you, it's about following those, you know, those breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. And learning that about myself it felt so counterintuitive to the beliefs I had about myself. Specifically as someone that like started working 2 jobs around 16 and just like worked like a workhorse for a lot of years, so much of me was wrapped up in really just kind of some of the common advice of the time of my generation, right? Like you're going hard, you're working hard, you're forcing, you push through and you make it happen. And it's just, I found that anytime I ever have to do that, it's not actually what's for me. It always ends up the wrong thing. And I remember there's this thing I heard once that Joel Osteen said, where it was like, God might let it happen if you keep working towards it, but there won't be any grace for it. And I think about that a lot when I don't follow the truth, which is really deeply rooted in receiving and waiting for things to come. But that is so absolutely spot on. Like, I can have a feeling, I can have an idea, but I found it's very important for me to actually be patient and not over the top pursue the idea until it shows up at my door, until it shows up for me. And that's hard because that is not the same as a lot of people I know.
Yep.
So sometimes people can perceive that as like not going after things, but it's more about, I found a path of like, you really trust your life. And like you really surrender and you prepare. I'm prepared for whatever moment.
Yeah.
But it shows up and then I respond accordingly.
And it really is around timing too. It's like, and you know, my husband has this and I'm always so amazed by his patience where he'll have like a brilliant idea and I'm like, make it happen, you know? And he's just like, not now. Yeah. He's like, when the time is right, I will, but it could be in 10 years, you know? And I'm just like, wow. But like, it's so true that it's like, if you force it before the time is right, before the gut feeling is there, like it just might not work out in all the ways that it's meant to, but like at the right time when the energy is there for it, it can probably take on a whole nother life.
Yeah. With all the people that you've worked with over the years, I mean, have you seen, like we're talking hundreds of thousands of charts. Have you seen every configuration there is to offer?
No.
Not
possible.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy because you know, you have your blueprint guide and I know you have one for your son too. Just that guide, which does not cover every single piece of the chart because there's no way to, there are 400,000 possible versions of that guide.
Wow.
So it's just like, the configurations are endless. That's another thing that I think makes human design so distinct.
Yeah.
Is that it's not really a thing where you're like, oh, we have the same design. Like we might have the same type, we might share the same strategy or make decisions in a similar way, but the nuances just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
That's kind of, I'm sure that feels exciting. Yeah, like it's just like, it's an endless kind of inspiration.
Yeah.
With like seeing so many though different, I guess, kinds of designs and makeups of people, do you ever tend to see, and maybe this even happens like within certain pockets of generations, but do you tend to see any particular patterns that might carry through or particular breakthroughs that might carry through?
There are definitely themes, you know, because people will like share kind of qualities of their chart for a while or things will be activated for a while. It was really interesting when my 7-month-old was born because like basically like all the kiddos that month were like all manifestors.
Wow.
It was like usually the type, and like, you know, I can't say that for sure, but like every single type I looked up for a long time, it was like all manifestors, and all my friends who had kids around that time have manifestor kiddos. So like, it is just really interesting to kind of watch the patterns of like even different types coming through.
Yeah.
You know, in ways that just feel like, why so many manifestors right now? Like why people that are here to like disrupt and change and innovate, like why is that needed? You know? So, I mean, I think we probably know why that's needed in our own ways, but I think that it is really interesting to kind of see those different patterns of like who's needed at different times and whether that, what the reason is behind that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we obviously have any definitive answer, but it's interesting to see the patterns.
Makes a lot of sense for alpha generation. That is for sure.
Yeah.
And like, what the world is kind of walking into, and
totally
when they come of age, what kind of place this might be and what they'll need to know how to do. And
totally.
Yeah. Woo-wee. So in your book, you include some examples of iconic figures, which are also some of my personal favorite muses of all time, like Maya Angelou, Nelson Mandela, Beyonce. Can you share any specific insights or stories you have around those icons?
Yeah, I think, you know, this is something that didn't come until later in the process. You know this as an author, how things keep changing. But basically like 2 months out before my manuscript was due, we decided to begin each chapter with a story of some celebrity or well-known figure and talk about how their design had showed up in their lives. And it was so fun because I got to go down all these rabbit holes of these people that I really admire and was like, how did this actually show up? Like, can you see it? And I mean, the moments are so amazing. You know, Nelson Mandela, I use him to begin the chapter on projectors. I think there's an amazing story of him being on a small airplane with, you know, somebody who helped write his biography, and like the plane starts shaking, like the propeller literally stops moving, And this guy, I think his name was Richard Stengel, like goes to the pilot and he's like, the propeller has stopped. What do we do? And like Nelson Mandela is just like sitting there so calmly, like picks up his newspaper, like keeps reading. And like, he was just like, this man was like the most inspiring leader. You know, he brought calm when like everybody else was scared or when there was chaos. And so like, he just really embodies kind of the subtle wisdom and leadership of projectors. I think that Maya Angelou, I used her to begin the chapter on manifestors. And she's obviously just like an iconic manifestor because she was the first in so many ways for so many things. But the story I tell of her is when she was 15 and kind of her first job and how she found her way to that. Beyonce, the story I actually use for her is to introduce the chapter on sacral authority like you have. And it basically is like, and it actually is funny talking about the book and how you did things because so much of sacral authority is like following what feels right, even when it like goes, you know, when it's not what anyone else is recommending. And, you know, there's like a way that people tend to drop albums. And like, I tell the story of her dropping an album, I think it was 2013, where like there was no, she just dropped it, you know?
She was like,
she was like, here you go. Like there's no, and I think that it was, and
break
it was
the internet.
But she broke the internet, and it was very much like you read her reflections on that time. And it was just very much like, this is what felt right to me. And this is like what I wanted to do. So like, it was so, yeah, it was really fun to kind of dig into these people and just see, obviously, like, I don't think they know their human design. I'm guessing they don't. But like the magic of human design is that when people are living in alignment, they're just it.
Yeah.
You just observe it. You know, Gloria Steinem's another story I tell of a manifestor, like, who was another amazing example of somebody just like initiating and bringing change and doing something new. You know, RuPaul, I tell a story of like, he's a projector, and it's like how his whole career began through this invitation, which is like the core thing for all projectors. So anyways, it was one of my favorite parts to kind of research and explore.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I'm so fascinated by things like that. Also, just small shout out to Nelson Mandela. I actually named my son after him.
No way.
His middle name, my son's middle name is Mandela. Because just, so much about his life and the paradox of it, and just what it would take to lead after going through what he went through, and lead with a message of love. Like it's just profound. One of the greatest of all times.
You know who the generator example is? LeBron James. Which I feel like is such an amazing example for generators, because generators are like, their passion is so contagious and they're so masterful and so steady. And like you look at, you know, and it's at the moment when he like became the highest scoring player in all of the NBA. And like, it's just, he's such a great example of like what happens when you combine this like powerful dedication and commitment with this like overflowing passion.
God, his life, like when history really looks back at it, you know, with some space, it's going to be like, what?
Totally.
The things he's accomplished, like obviously
outside
in sports,
of basketball,
but outside, like the things that he does for the community, for people, for the world, for children, it's just like breathtaking.
I know. He's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is. This whole language. I love too. It's like, I feel like I really live my design.
Yeah.
And that's such a good feeling. Because as you've described it's just the feeling of being in alignment.
Yeah.
Where you're picking on to things. You're like, oh, I knew to do that. And actually, wow, it says, you know, that might be something good for me.
Yeah. I feel like people can have these different experiences discovering their design. One is a really affirming experience of like, oh yeah, I'm already doing this. I'm so glad I learned. And then there's also a very confronting experience of like, I'm living everything opposite of that, which was my experience discovering my design. So there's such a spectrum. Yeah, my God, I was so far from my projector nature. And but it felt so true, everything that I heard, that, you know, human design gave me the tools to find my way into a way of operating that felt more true to me. So it does both, but I see people across the spectrum experiencing.
Now, I know you've worked with some big companies with this work. How does that process happen, being able to apply that in the workplace? Like you've worked with Meta, with Amazon, with Unilever. What are some changes that you see kind of in that bigger collective when they adopt some of this awareness?
You know, I think that it's honestly like a similar principle to parenting and relationships. I think that things can get really confusing when we expect someone to be different than what they are.
Ooh.
But when you understand how somebody operates, things become easier, especially in teams. Like, you know, I came from when I discovered human design in 2015, I came from the startup world, and I was working with a number of startups that were amazing and also dysfunctional because it felt like people just didn't understand each other. And so the first application I saw for human design was like, this can be used as a tool to help teams understand each other better. That was why I got into it in the first place. And I think what I've noticed with time is it really does that. You sit with people and you can tell them very, practically, and like, okay, this person might enjoy less meetings. They might need a lot more space to be in their own flow. This person might really enjoy collaboration. This person like does really well when they're invited in. This person needs specific questions. This person needs to mull things over. This person is really instantaneous in their clarity. So, and the way that I frame it in companies especially is very much like, let this spark a conversation around how we operate best instead of like, you must resonate. I think it's a really nice opportunity to kind of think about how you operate best. But I think what I notice with teams is that when those interpersonal dynamics are kind of brought to light in a really clear, explicit way, it makes working together so much easier because it feels like they're able to kind of leverage each other's gifts in a way that is great, and like I sat with a team last week. I've sat with them for many years. It's a bakery that's like franchising right now, and the COO is a manifester, and manifestors are really good at like getting new ideas started, but not always great at sustaining that idea they've created. And their gift is kickstarting ideas. That's an amazing gift. And it was so funny hearing her reflection on it because she's like, God, I start so many things and feel so much guilt around the fact that I just like my energy dwindles. I can't finish them. But within a team context, it was just really clear that like her gift was starting, other people could support her in the finishing. And so in a moment like that, she was like, oh, like I can actually like, that is a gift on its own. I can just do that.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. Exactly what you should be doing.
Totally.
I love that. That's so interesting. Yeah. Cause I mean, that is, I think the workplace especially is where, all of our spiritual curriculum sometimes goes to die.
Yeah.
If we're not working through it, or if we haven't worked through it with our family, like it just always shows up in some way or form, at work. And work is also like the capital of comparison.
Yeah.
Like it's just
totally.
Where the nature of it is you're surrounded by that. And so to lean into your actual strengths and creativity, it's, it's no small thing. It's pretty revolutionary.
It is, and I think I also expected a lot of skepticism from teams.
Yeah.
But I just feel like a lot of people are like, they want to know about themselves, and like, I feel like even the most resistant, skeptical people tend to love it the most because they're like, it's undeniably helpful.
Yeah. Undeniably helpful.
Yeah,
That's
so like,
good.
As much as I don't want to believe it, it feels true to me, and it feels specific to me, and it feels useful to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's such a cool team, and it's such a cool tool in workplaces. And honestly, like human design, as you know, is a little bit wild in like all the things that it can do. And with teams, you can actually like layer everybody's charts on top of each other and start to see where the gaps might be, which I find incredibly useful because like you can, with a team, when there's a gap, like all the energy goes towards filling this gap. And when you realize like you just need another person that will fill it really tends to like shed light on these like mechanics in a way that is really helpful.
That's so interesting. And I definitely highly encourage those listening that may have your own small business or your own team of whatever size. But especially if you are building a team and you're an entrepreneur, it can be really powerful to do some of this as team building, as understanding how to build your empire, how to build the thing. Okay.
Should we go back to your design?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me.
What were you going to say? I realized we got far from it, and I was like, I felt bad because I want you to hear about your design.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, let me tell you a little bit more.
Okay.
Your 6'2" profile, which you know, but I love this about you. I have the same profile. You guys can look up your profile at humandesignblueprint.com, and this will be true for, I'll talk about the 6 first. It's true for anyone with a 6 in their profile. You are somebody, obviously, through what you do, you're a very natural role model. You're somebody who's meant to inspire people, not always because of like the things you say, but just because of like who you are. Like your authenticity is meant to be such a permission slip for others to also be authentic. And the best part is that it's meant to keep getting better.
Oh,
for you,
please.
It's like the first 30 years were meant to be trial and error galore,
It was
like
so hard.
The hard time. It's just like the time to throw everything against the wall, not a time to figure much of it out. 30 to 50 where you are right now is a time where things might settle a little bit. And by settle, like there's probably still going to be plenty of change, but there's just, heightened clarity around what is actually worth your energy and what's not.
Yeah.
I do find, I don't think you're 40 yet, right?
No, I will be soon.
So I find that the 40s are such a cool time for these people because they just become like intolerant of anything that's like not fully aligned. You're probably already in that moment.
Oh, I'm
but like,
so intolerant.
But I just like whenever I sit with some people in their 40s in this moment and they're just like, not this, not this. And I'm like, this is as somebody who's in my 30s right now. I'm just like, I love these people. Like I'm ready to, I can integrate it now.
Yeah.
But then the third phase for you is 50 and beyond. And that's meant to be the time that you really hit your prime.
Wow.
And it's like, because you just like become yourself, like in like such a rooted, embodied way. And these people, like I find their words have so much gravity. They speak and everyone just kind of stops and listens.
Wow. Wow.
The 2 in your profile is around the fact that you're very naturally hermetic. So time and space alone is an essential need of yours.
Oh my gosh, she aloof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that the gifts you carry are sometimes inexplicable. You just have like your own way of doing things that is just like the Devi way, in a way that like you might not always be able to explain how you do what you do, but it just works.
Yeah.
And so for you, it's about really leaning into the ways that feel easeful and natural to you, knowing they're the perfect way for you.
Resonates very deeply. Very, very, very deeply.
Should I share one more piece?
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Well, I'm just, I'm selfishly sharing about the pieces that I also share in my design. Oh, okay. 2 more pieces and then I'll be done. So there's another part of your design that's around the fact that you are somebody who, we call it a freak to genius in human design, which is obviously a weird name, but it means that you are here to kind of explore pretty far out, cutting edge ideas. And you've got an ability to really kind of simplify complex ideas in a way that makes them palatable to a lot more people. And a big lesson for you, do you resonate with that?
I so resonate with that.
Yeah. A big lesson for you is around the fact that things that might seem really obvious to you are not obvious to other people.
Oh my God.
So
yeah.
So much of your journey is like, how can I make the things obvious? Let me not assume that they're obvious. How can I communicate them in a way that makes them make sense?
Oh my God. That part has been, I think, like an ongoing thing for me to study and observe in myself. Cause I think, for the vast majority of my life, I used to feel so frustrated with humans, with human beings in general. Cause I thought everyone knew what I knew. I thought everyone saw the world exactly how I see it. And they were just refusing to be better or refusing to make a better choice or,
Wow.
And so it would just, when I was younger, it was frustrating. I'm like, I felt like everyone was like, the world was playing a joke on me, that I could see things so clearly or understand like the good choice or the better way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I felt that everyone on purpose was trying to make my life difficult. I know that sounds insane.
It doesn't.
But then kind of learning that it's changed me because it's definitely, one, showed me I'm meant to teach. And I think that was the biggest gift that I could take away from it. It's like, no, this isn't about being frustrated. You have this understanding because you're meant to share it, or you're meant to help other people connect maybe to a bigger thought or a more expanded way. But until I got that, life felt really frustrating. It felt really frustrating. It's like, it's like the saying of like, common sense isn't common. It's like imagining that everyone else sees it and gets it. And you're like, oh no, they don't, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
No.
They're not wrong for that.
Totally.
It's just, so release your frustration and sometimes just hold your tongue. Just know, hey, I'm seeing it this way. I don't have to do anything with that information. Or know when it's time to share the perspective, the sight, the ability to see certain things that others don't.
Yeah. And I think you actually speak to another really important part of this gift, which is around, if you share your insights with those that are not ready, it often will go right over their head and cultivate a lot of bitterness in you.
Yeah.
But when you wait until the invitation is there and until you have learned how to simplify it and distill the knowledge in a way that makes it make sense, then you're seen as an absolute genius. So it's like just waiting for the right moment, waiting for this simplifying process to occur, also can ease some of that frustration. And I'm also glad you said frustration, because we all have aspects in our design, this is explored in the book, that can reveal whether we're on or off track. Simple and yet useful for you when you are off track, which honestly happens for all of us. Off track's not a great word for that, but just like a course correct is needed, is frustration.
Yeah.
And like that can jump in small ways, of course, but when it's showing up in more persistent, deep ways, it basically is an invitation for you to say, is there another way to do this?
Oh my God. That has been so life-changing for me. Like that, the simplicity of that, of knowing that frustration versus a feeling of being satisfied is how I'll know.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like now that has kind of aligned in my life for the last few years, where as soon as I feel frustrated, I let go. Like if I feel frustration happening around something, I instantaneously now know, let go, step back, you know, don't pursue or find a different way, but create some space around all of it, you know, and that's made life so much more enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
You know, it feels so much better to not be harboring this feeling of frustration and just say, oh, that's not the path if it feels that way.
Totally. Like that's actually information for you to see if a change is needed.
Yeah.
You know, and just, you know, to give people an experience of the opposite, not the opposite, but a different one. For me, it's bitterness. Like not feeling recognized or appreciated or seen is the moment for me to step back and be like, is this really the right place for me? For some people, it's anger. It's kind of feeling disempowered and not free to do what they want, when they want, how they want. That's true for manifestors. And some people, it's disappointment. So again, we will all experience all of these feelings. And yet there's one that tends to like speak to the core of like, oh, like something about this is not right.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Last question for you. As your book is getting ready to come into the world, how are you feeling about this moment in your life? How are you relating to this moment?
Oh man, it's harder than I thought it'd be. This moment, I think it is in part because I have 2 young kiddos and life feels a little bit too full at the moment. I think this whole experience of writing a book has been a lesson in surrender. And I think we spoke about this a little bit. I think that I feel like I've done everything that I can do to create the book that I feel like need to be written, to get it out as much as I can. And now I have to like let a book take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
So I actually feel really excited to kind of like set it off to sea and let it do its own thing. It feels like I prepared the ship, you know, and now it's out of my hands. So I actually feel like the leading up is hard because I think I'm really ready to be on the other side of it, which I will be once this I think is out. But I think I just like I'm ready for it to take on its own life and let it go do its own thing in the world.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I have a discount code for your community.
Oh, please tell us the things.
What do you want the code to be? The word. Your name?
Devi?
Devi? Okay, great. For the Blueprint Guide. If you want to get your guide, the discount code is Devi. Yay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
Thank you. And we'll put all that in the show notes, everyone. So we'll put the website, we'll put the link to the book, we'll put the discount code and all of the things. So just as you're listening to this, scroll down and read and click and you'll find it. Erin, your book, How Do You Choose? A Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work, in Love, and in Life, officially birthed into the world, this Taurus baby, on May 13th, and also available for pre-order everywhere you get books now. As our final thing, I invite every guest at the end of the show to share a little soul work with everyone listening. That can be a favorite practice. It can be a thought starter, a prompt, a quote, but anything to help integrate what everyone has been listening to in this episode.
Okay. Can I do a question for each type?
Yeah.
So I think the reflection I would have for generators is what in your life right now feels the most satisfying? Like what is the thing that you would feel so glad to have done? And how can you carve out space for that this week? Is there a thing that comes to mind for you?
I need to add more pleasure to my week. I need to I'm busy with book travel.
Yeah.
So I need to get a little more sleep while I'm home. And then I want to do something that just feels deeply enjoyable, but not productive.
Exactly. It's like, how can you do a thing that's like feels fun and enjoyable and satisfying just because?
Yeah.
Without needing to monetize or make anything of it, just because. For manifesting generators, I would ask whether you are continuing to commit to anything out of obligation and a desire to please rather than what you actually still have the energy for, allowing your energy to naturally dwindle and, indicate that something new is ahead. I think as a projector, I would encourage you to carve out space in your week to be deliberately unproductive, to have a moment of rest where you're producing nothing. For reflectors, I would encourage you to go spend time in a place that you just love, a cafe, a park, a museum, and trust that being in the right spaces is the fastest path to finding your flow. And manifestors, I would encourage you to carve out a moment. Sorry, these are no longer questions. I would encourage you to carve out a moment in your week to have time to be uninterrupted, whatever you want to do, passion project, whatever, but just time for you to kind of close the door and be in your own space.
Thank you so much. Erin Claire Jones, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, share this episode with a friend. Go ahead and get that code and get your human design on. Figure out, some of those deeper layers of how you can be used and maximize your human experience while you're here. Thank you for listening to the show. Please drop a review and we'll be back next week. Namaste.